just like buses, you wait for them, and all of a sudden, like wins, 3-3 come along at once. Chelsea managing to defeat Burnley 4-1 away from home. Goals from Cole Palmer, Raheem Sterling, Nicholas Jackson, and an own goal, unfortunately, but it's created by Sterling himself. And it's the We Talk Chelsea podcast. We're live on YouTube and on TKS TV. Lads, this is all right, isn't it? It's somewhat positive that we're able to talk about Chelsea wins 3 in a row, 3 in a bounce.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going into obviously a run of games that it requires confidence. We've managed to get these 3 wins on the bounce, which should supply us with confidence. The first game, obviously, coming up, Arsenal at home. It's not going to be easy. Let's face it. And there's a lot more to come, believe us. But I don't know. I've just got a good feeling. I think we've actually managed to score a few goals. There isn't too many negatives, and just feels proud again to be Chelsea, and it feels good going to this international break. Feels good to be a Chelsea fan. What do you reckon, Seb?
As always, I'll go a bit more negative.
Mr. Positive.
I think it's almost normality is sort of resuming. It's good to actually get a win. I think we saw this last season where under Graham Potter, where we started relatively well and we thought, okay, now we're going to push on. And then we went into a fixture list that was a bit tough. And then, what happened. We sort of just loss after loss after loss. So I think I'll hold my cards tight to my chest in that perspective. I think brilliant win, 4 goals, does the world of good for the team. Worst thing is it's international break next week, so that doesn't help. And the opponent you're coming back against is Arsenal. We have Enzo and Caicedo going off to South America, so that sort of thing doesn't fill me with confidence as how are Chelsea going to play, because I think this is the perfect time where we would have wanted Arsenal straight away. But irrespective of that, I think you can't argue with 3 wins in a row. And yeah, we've been brilliant throughout it.
Honestly, Tem, you've completely changed positions with Charlie. Like, completely. Like, come February time last year, Charlie was Mr. Negative, and then Tem, Mr. Positive, trying to get the positive spin on. I think, well, maybe that's more so me, but it's just nice to be talking about Chelsea winning games, because last season, and when we're losing game after game after game after game after game again, it's a little bit depressing. So it's quite useful that we can talk about some victories. As ever, we've previously brought somebody on the podcast in the past with me discussing Chelsea's last loss against Aston Villa, where we lost 1-0. So we want to introduce a guest at this time. We're welcoming from Turfmoorhouse TV, Dan. Dan, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us on the We Talk Chelsea podcast. Appreciate you.
No, thanks for having me. It's a shame I'm coming on here after a defeat, but not what it's to be expected. You're in good form.
Don't worry, we'd have had you on if we'd have been pumped 4-1 as well. Don't worry about it. We're used to it. For the last year or so, we're completely used to discussing our losses. But it's interesting. I wanted to get your background on things, because it's always interesting talking to different fans from different backgrounds, who support different clubs, with the viewpoint of Chelsea. Obviously, we don't have the best reputation. A lot of clubs will say, well, you're spending billions of pounds, you should be getting these points like that. But from your viewpoint as a Burnley fan, like when you look at a club that's so different and far away removed from a Burnley team, like what's your viewpoint on Chelsea overall?
I mean,
you can be honest.
There were a lot of question marks. As an outsider, there were a lot of question marks hanging over the future of Chelsea. Obviously, when Abramovich, went, and then Ted Bowley came in, and everyone's like, "Oh, is this guy the right guy?" I mean, there's probably still a lot of Chelsea fans that question this guy's integrity. Of, yes, you've pumped a lot of money in, but do you know absolutely anything about football? That's sort of the big question hanging over people's heads. I think what you've done is, yes, you've spent a lot of money, but because you're the club the size of Chelsea, you've spent it on talent that is good enough to still be nurtured, still got time to give. And you've got a point to prove, obviously, as well, after last season and the position you finished. Anything is better than last year. I mean, I look at Liverpool. They literally busted an arse to win that Premier League. After that, they've been blowing dust for the rest of it. They can't keep up. The thing is, Chelsea needed a rebirth and a regenerate, to regenerate again. And I think give it 2 or 3 years, if Poch can really get things going, we'll see the good times back at Stamford Bridge.
I think give a Chelsea manager 2 or 3 years is very, very wishful thinking. I think if we go on a good run of games, it could be 2 games, and we're discussing our third manager in as many years. No, so going into the game, Dan, like obviously, Chelsea won back-to-back games. We defeated Brighton, and then we also beat. Oh, who did we speak? My memory's failing me. Save me, Tem. Fulham. We beat Fulham as well. So going into the games, were you? I'm sure maybe earlier on at the start of the season, you would have been a bit more positive going into the games. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how did you feel about welcoming Chelsea to Turf Moor?
I always looked at Turf Moor as this. I think every fan looks at it as like this dirty old ground that nobody likes going to. It's a hellhole. It's like everyone says about Burnley. It's a shithole, but it's our shithole. So it's we wanted to make it hell. That's what Kompany asked every single Burnley fan to do. Make Turf Moor hell, try and really make it a horrible place for players to come, although people just seem to thrive in that at the minute. Coming in on the back of those results that you've had, I started to worry a little bit. I thought, that game against Fulham said everything for me. The start of the game, I thought Fulham were quite easily on the front foot, and then it was just a case of on that day, burying your chances. Fulham couldn't for love nor money. And, Chelsea did the business, got the 2-0 win over a local rival, or they're just, minnows, really, to you guys. But, yeah, I mean, the form that you've been in recently, even if it's just those 3 results, it's still something to keep looking on and progress. And Poch will be looking at that, with the next game in mind as well.
And just on the game, sorry, Tom, just on the game itself, you obviously watch teams play Burnley every week. I've always seen Burnley as quite a hard team to beat in terms of the teams that are coming up. And I thought, obviously, we took our chances on Saturday, which was about the first time we'd done that this season, let's face it. Do you see anything in Chelsea, or do you think it was kind of like, compared to Man City kind of just came there, did the job, or did Chelsea actually do a job on you, or did Burnley just have a bad day? How would you actually see it in terms of a Burnley fan's perspective?
There's 2 or 3 ways of looking at this. I think first half we really put ourselves in and about it. If the game were based over 45 minutes, I thought we did really, really well. It were a bit of a sucker punch to concede that, that own goal so close to half time, to be honest. It's one of them, isn't it? You're just ripping up the team talk and everything else. I know it's cliche, but you are. But second half, we just arse fell out. There's no other way of saying it. The arse fell out. And we didn't really get going when we for the second half. I think a thing that there's a bit of naivety in this Burnley side as well. It's quite young. There's hardly any experience in there. And the experience that we had last season, the likes of Ashley Barnes, who really helped just be that vocal point in the dressing room, was massive. So to miss out on a few people that have been there, done that, then it kind of, you're a bit like, I don't know, you're trying to stand toe to toe with the big guns, and you're not there yet. Yeah. You're trying to be something you're not. I know that when Kompany came in, like I say, his plan was to come into Burnley with a 2 to 3 year philosophy of getting some young talent, nurture them, and then we'll go and try and get promoted. Not once did he expect that crop of players he brought in to get him up there at the first time of asking. So now it's a case of, I mean, again, I'd still say it now, 17th and above, you snap your hand off. Kompany won't like that. As a natural born winner, that won't be good enough for him. But as a fan, you've got to be real, haven't you? That you are a newly promoted side. You are very young, so in terms of that, you've got the inexperience. I've just seen a bit of naivety in us a little bit, and that's not taking anything away from Chelsea as well. But I think the goals that we conceded, against tougher opposition, you may have struggled to put them away. I think we were just defensively lackluster a little bit, and again, I can't shake that word out of my head. Naivety. It's just
There's something interesting that you said earlier on about there's it's a very young team, not a lot of experience in it, and this kind of echoes a lot of with Chelsea. Really, you're like only a smaller side of budget. I mean, it must have. How did you? I mean, you look at it when you took the lead. 1-0. You took the lead with a goal from I think it was your youngest.
Youngest
in the Premier
replaced
League.
Dwight McNeil. Yeah, so Wilson Odobert, 18 years of age. I mean, took it really well. Can't fault him.
Yeah,
and good work by Foster as well to get to it.
Yeah, and how did you feel initially when the starting lineups were announced? Did you feel confident? Did you think, okay, well, we've looked at, but Mudryk has been on fine form. He wasn't on the bench. He's not going to run at tired legs with Tino. I think he's your right back. But how did you feel with the starting lineup going forward? Do you think, what, we could potentially nick something from this? Especially going 1-0 up. I know if it was me in that position, I'd be like, oh Jesus, 1-0 up now. Okay, maybe did you score a little bit too early? Do you think? Was it too early to take the game by the scruff of the neck?
Is there any time in a game to score too early or too late? You know what I mean? It's a tough one because yes, the opposition then have to come out and invite that pressure. I thought that first half an hour, I was watching him work and I said to everyone, I'm like, I didn't expect to see in this first half hour Burnley have so much possession, so much, control of the game. But then as soon as the game turned and the possession went in your favour, you made it count. You hit us where you needed to. We just, like I say, going in at having that first goal, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It was ruined for me because somebody actually said it in the restaurant. I heard celebrating in there, so I missed it because I was watching it on a perfectly legal stream.
Your restaurant's in America, right? That's where you're watching it from.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
I thought so. It's a long
virtual,
commute.
It's a virtual restaurant. I was going to say though, I thought like personally watching the game, I thought the your goal came a little bit against the run of play. I thought we started okay. We came out of the traps. I mean, it's a typical story for us this season. We come out of the traps quite fast. And then we sort of get our heads down, and then the opposition team scores. For us, obviously, to get that goal before half time was a big one. I mean that's how I thought it. What about you, Tim? You've been a bit quiet, mate. How have you found it?
No, I was just listening to you guys all talk. Really, I thought the first half an hour Burnley were certainly the better team. I think we did a lot of possession, but a whole lot of nothing, to be honest. They were all over us. They looked more threatening going forward. I think our only good outlet was Raheem Sterling. I think he's the only one who had real impetus to get at them, but that's typical of Sterling. He is direct. He will lose the ball maybe 4 out of 5 times every time he takes a player on, but he'll still keep going. And I think his persistence showed off, especially towards the end of the first half, because we could have gone in 1-0 easily at halftime, and that little bit of drive got us a goal at the end, a very, very lucky goal. I don't think it was really deserved, but at the end of the day, you need that type of luck. And I think over the course of the season, we've really not had any luck go our way. We've been really terrible in front of goal. Maybe a deflection's fallen to us and someone's put it wide, or unlucky decisions. Referee at Aston Villa was really bad. I know that VAR, that was a red card. I won't contest that it wasn't a red card, but the referee in general was awful. He blew 90 seconds before he was actually meant to blow the whistle. I mean, who does that? Go on. That sort of thing, you need sometimes to go your way. And I guess against Burnley, unfortunately for you guys, it just went that way. I think that was pretty much my first half thoughts. And I just wanted to ask, how deflated were you when that goal went in at halftime?
I mean, I weren't too bad because obviously it's 1-1 at half time, and you're thinking, right, surely they're going to go in there. Kompany's going to be like a little bit more of the same, but we need to be a bit more resilient at the back. Let's not lose ourselves in numbers in midfield trying to get forward, especially when we play such a high line. When you're trying to press,
Yeah.
When you've not got the same quality as the opposition, you're very prone to, being on the losing end of that battle. So I was hoping that Kompany would be a little bit more resilient. I mean, I think it was going back to Tom's question about the team sheet. I was a bit, blindsided by the fact that why has he changed the team from the team that beat Luton?
Yeah.
That's what bugged me. You've had a team that's just got a win. People are going to call me contradicted because under Sean Dyche, he never changed a bloody thing. I mean, you'd have the same splinter up your arse every week. It's that bad. 11 stiff idiots kicking a ball up top. But now you've got, people finding pockets of space, being able to, mix up play, playing it out from the back. Things that people sitting at Bob Lordstown with their flask and blankets over the kneecaps, probably in awe or wondering what's going on. I'm thinking they've had a week in Madrid watching some fancy football or something. It's surreal. It is surreal, but we can't be going toe to toe with these big teams. I mean, in a way, you have to because you play each other. You always play each other over 90 minutes, but you've got to try and think of the best way to win. At the moment, I don't see a plan B.
Yeah, it's definitely
that's my issue.
It's definitely a different Burnley than what we're used to seeing from Premier League under Sean Dyche. Obviously, Vincent Kompany come in from Anderlecht, and he's completely changed the way Burnley played. You completely stormed the Championship last season. You absolutely bossed it. You've come up to this here, and it's looking like, controversially or not, Vincent Kompany's like, no, we've got a style of play. We're going to stick to this. Is it the style of play that's the issue, or is it simply just the run of games? Because Chelsea are about to go into this a very similar run of games that you guys have had when you played all the big teams back-to-back consecutive, and obviously not picking up the points. So naturally, people are going to think, oh, things aren't going well. It reminds me a little bit of Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace last season. He had all that run of games against top 6 sides, lost them all, and all of a sudden he gets sacked. Hodgson comes in, he wins his first game against opposition lower down. Are we going to see the real Burnley in the next few games, do you think? Because I remember watching them play out from, was it Spurs, where we saw really expansive football from Burnley, and it looked a lot like the Championship side, like the football that they were playing. Is it simply just, is Vincent Kompany the one that's going to propel Burnley forwards and gradually keep you creeping up forwards, maybe ending up like Thomas Frank at Brentford or something along those lines? Like, where do you see Burnley under the helm of Vincent Kompany?
I think that's what Alan Pearce, our chairman, wants, obviously. I think he described Vincent Kompany as, you're going out with the best looking girl on the estate, but everyone also wants a piece of her, and you've got to do everything you can to try and keep hold of her.
Remember that one, bloody hell.
To be fair, I never thought I'd hear our American owners coming out with the most Ian Holloway cliche comment ever. But yeah, he's come in, like I say, changed our fortunes. It's a culmination of youth, inexperience, naivete, just the determination's there, the determination, the heart, desire, all that's there, but it's a case of putting it together. I look back at where we are now and where we were last year. It took us at least 10, 15 games before we got into a rhythm. Because there were many games in the Championship last season we were like 1-0 up, or we chuck it away in the 90th minute, or Blackpool last season were 3-0 up. 3-0 up. We ended up finishing the game 3-3. Funnily enough, that was the game Matson got sent off.
It cost me my accumulator as well. Cheers, mate. Lost my house on that one.
But it's Burnley have released a documentary now, and I think that shows a lot as well on there of how much Vincent Kompany is heavily involved in team meetings, not just with the players, but literally invited into the boardroom one, saying, this is the projection of where we've gone, this is where our form's sparking and where it's dipping. There's so much information and that technically that you get out of it nowadays compared to what it used to be when you had Stan Turner on the touchline with a fag in his hand. It's completely different at Burnley to what it is now. So I'd like to think that this point where we are and last season, we are going to start to see maybe Burnley, not get results because it's never a given, but maybe have a good vein of form and a good, togetherness. That second half, I'm sure every single Burnley player will be, putting their arm around each other, saying, "Look, we threw that second half away. We've all got to put our heads together, dig deep, and we go for the next one."
Do you think?
We've got
We've
got Brentford next, who chucked it away against United. So hopefully that's
Do you think it was Burnley? Because obviously we can watch games with our Chelsea hat on, and we can watch it we can try and be as unbiased as we want to be. But 9 times out of 10, we're not going to say, "Oh, the other team absolutely bossed us," or "The other team we were terrible." We're going to think Chelsea were good or Chelsea were shit. Like that's what we're going to think of in that respect. I think it's the standard viewpoint from any fan. But do you think it was Burnley that threw the game away, or was it Chelsea was good?
A bit of both. There's got to be a bit of both. The fact that if Chelsea, if everything's going right for Chelsea, it's because of individual errors, maybe, or one misplaced pass leads to another. I mean, well, misplaced pass. I think it was the last goal, wasn't it? We've lost the ball in midfield, and again, a mistake cost us the own goal. Not much you can do about that. The penalty, not penalty situation, however you want to look at it, is what it is. Not could be done about that. For me, I think we just, I don't know. There's definitely a hint of both. Chelsea did play well second half. Poch certainly stuck a firework in there and said, "Right, run." Let a firework off in the dressing room and said, "Run hard. You get hit like one of these, you're coming off." Something like that. And that it certainly worked. It certainly worked because Chelsea did definitely up the game, and we sort of just went out there thinking, let's just carry on. Let's just do what we did first half, and it should take care of itself. You can't have that. That again, like I say, goes back to naivety.
Yeah, and I read a very interesting stat before doing the podcast. The average amount of passes that Burnley retains possession in games at the start of the season was 14 passes before they then lose the ball or do something with the ball. But against Chelsea, the second half especially, the press that Chelsea put on Burnley averaged 7 passes on average. So it just goes to show we're starting to see the start of a Pochettino kind of like pressing team. But Dan, before we let you jump off and get on to EA EA Sports. It's just a quick one. Where do you hope to see? Well, before that, actually, Ian Maitson obviously was at loan at Burnley last season in the Championship. He's come to his last. He's less than 2 years left on his Chelsea deal. Obviously, a bid went in from Burnley in the summer. We rejected that on the basis. It's looking likely, potentially, that Maitson might not stay at the club. Obviously. Talk to us a little bit. We've probably seen a lot less of Ian Maitson than you have, and it's just bizarre because he's a Chelsea player. But talk to me on what a player that Ian Maitson is, what he could be, and what Chelsea could potentially be missing out on if we do sell him for however much to somebody. Could even be Burnley. You never know.
Well, you never know. Man like Ian was a beast for us. I can't say he wasn't. He got us up and running on the opening day of the season away at Huddersfield, opening up the EFL season. Great finish, edge of the box. And to be honest, out of all the loan players we had last season, that first half of the season I'd have gone, right, if we sign in anyone on a permanent way, it's Maatson. Yeah. No matter what, bring him in. And it's worried me because obviously the window's shut and all we've got is Charlie Taylor at left back. And you're thinking, we've got no cover, no nothing. You're going to have to try and put a centre-back in that position. And so you start to worry. Don't get me wrong. Apparently, there was a bid accepted, weren't they, on transfer deadline day? 30-odd million, which I'm thinking, like Burnley, who've you robbed? Paddy Power or something? Like, what's going on? Do you want to bet? But we just... I'd have had him back in a heartbeat. That I can hold my hands up and say I would have had him back in a heartbeat. It was nice to see him at the turf in blue. It should have been claret as well. But, I think the thing is with Burnley is he was played in a left back position, which is going to be very difficult at Chelsea with the likes of, like, say, Chilwell, Cucurella, Colwell. So, where does he slot in? He's got to think about that bigger picture. We're looking at the rumours at Chelsea that he was offered a 6-year contract or something, but he doesn't want that. He doesn't want to stay that long and stuff. The thing is about Ian Maatsen is I like him as a person, not just as a footballer. The things he did while at Burnley as well were out of this world off the pitch. At Christmas time, he put out on his Instagram about doing, visiting families in Burnley that are struggling at this time of year. And he went out personally with his family to around 5 or 6 different families. And here's all the stuff for a Christmas dinner. Here's some presents for you and the kids and things like that. He didn't have to do any of that. But he threw himself into the fact that Burnley is such a tight-knit community club. And I think that's why a lot of people have respect for him. Some people have changed their mind now after the fact of his Snapchat story of, I'm going nowhere. But, there's always fickle people in a fan base. And like I say, I wish him well. And if he goes, I hope he does make a success of it at Chelsea because, like I say, he's been out to Coventry, he's come out to us. Poch clearly liked what he saw in America, so he must have done something right to still be in and around it now. And like I say, he nearly bagged against Fulham as well, didn't he? So
very
fair play to him. I want to see him be successful, whether that's in the blue of Chelsea or claret and blue of Burnley, wherever it is. He goes with our best wishes anyway, from a Burnley fan perspective.
Just not Blackburn, yeah.
No, definitely not.
Dan, before we let you get off to EAFC, I just wanted to ask you a question. What are your aspirations for Burnley for the rest of the season? What's your heart telling you? What's your head telling you? Do you think you can survive the drop? But do you think Kompany's the right man to take you forward to the end of the season?
I think January is pivotal for us. January is pivotal. If we get there and we are around, just outside of the drop zone, we're going to struggle in the window. As a club that's just promoted anyway, you struggle to bring players in because you've got that, players are thinking, do I really want to be in a relegation battle? Kompany's been telling players that he wants to bring in that he wants them to get better, but he also wants to get the club to a Villa or a Brighton stage. I want to be up there in the, Europa Conference and push for that, which is massive. If it comes off. I know we had that taste of it under Dash, but it's different now. You're in a league where you adapt or die, and at that time under Dash, we were dying, quickly, like bloody cholera. But it were 17th and above. Like I say, I would snap your hand off for that now. End of the season, 17th. We've got another season. That's another full year of progression in the legs of these youngsters. And let's see where we go. But my head wants at least a 13th, 14th finish. I know it's not much difference, but in terms of the pay packet from 17th to comfortably mid-table is, probably a lot more beneficial for us. And with the money we've spent on players, because I think we're linked with every player that we're valued at 15 mil this year. We spent 19 million on a keeper that's only been League One tested. There's a lot of fans debating him at the moment as well. But head and heart say two different things.
He had a good year under 21 tournament, so you never know. He could be a player that you might have bought him for 90 million, but Chelsea might buy him for 60 million in a couple of years' time. So you might make a return on that investment there. No, but Dan, I really appreciate you joining us on the We Talk Chelsea podcast. If you are a Burnley fan, you are watching us now, make sure you go head over to Turfmoorhouse TV, give him a little subscribe. We'll greatly appreciate it. Dan, we'll probably bring you back on when we invite you to Stamford Bridge later on in the season, but I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, and nice to see you, fellas.
Yeah, you too. Good luck for the season, Dan.
Take care, Dan.
We're going to need it. We're going to need each other.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, chaps, that's Dan there from the Turfmoorhouse TV. But trying to bring fans of other clubs, it's quite difficult to find players, fans of the Burnley, but we found one. I appreciate Dan coming on with us. But, at this point now, we could probably just divulge about Chelsea particularly, and I think a player that we need to talk about is Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling is was on fire. He was involved in all aspects of the goal. Won the penalty. Got the pre-assist. That doesn't even count as a thing, but he was involved in every aspect of the goal. Won the penalty. Scored a goal. Phenomenal. He looks to me like he's starting to justify his fee. Do you agree, Tem, or do you think it's he wants to play on the left as well? The trouble that we do have with Raheem Sterling is Mikhailo Mudryk also wants to play on the left, and Mudryk needs game time. So it's a nice problem for Pochettino to have, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a healthy, unhealthy headache to have. I don't know how to exactly describe it. I always say that because these are young players. That's the only negative. Like, they need constant game time. But in the good sense, he is one of the most experienced players. So him showing up like the way he did, he sets a precedent for all the other players. Like, look, this is what you need to do to get to my level now. And at times where we've needed leadership, he's now showing up this season, where last season I think he was part of the problem of why we were playing so bad. I think Poch has done something different with him this season, and he alluded it to himself, where he said, I'm not receiving the ball back to goal now. I've got the ball where I'm driving at players. I've got the license to just take people on. Whether that works or not, that's a different story. I don't think he's the best 1v1 player in the world, but he's consistent at it, in the sense, like, 2 or 3 times he'll get away. And it's more about when he does get into those dangerous spaces, can we get a goal? Can he create a good chance for another player to make sure that we do score the goal? And yeah, like you say, with a hand in all 4 goals, there's not much better that you can ask for him. So yeah. And it's just a surprise even more that Gareth Southgate has dropped him. I was quite shocked about that. I thought, he's starting to return to good form. Why is he not being selected for England? Is it a Chelsea thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one of the more senior players at Chelsea, Charlie. He certainly took the game by the scruff of the neck, and sometimes you need that experience, the impetus to take the players on. It's looking like Raheem Sterling is looking like the Man City player that Chelsea thought they were buying a couple of seasons back. He's looking a lot more direct, running at players and taking the game by the scruff of the neck. Like, do you think Raheem Sterling deserves that England call-up, or are England in better position with regards to other, wingers on that side? Saka being one of them.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not here to talk about Gareth Southgate in England. That's not really why I'm here. I'm here to talk about Chelsea. And as far as I'm concerned, for Chelsea Football Club, Raheem Sterling, absolutely turned up on Saturday. That was an incredible performance. And what's quite funny about Sterling, what I find, let's be honest, you can say, his form's been consistent. It's not been consistent. He started the season quite well. He dipped a little bit, but this was a game where, against Fulham, he had a virus, or he got dropped, or whatever it was. And there's been, obviously, Mudryk's been in the wing, and there's been Palmer's come along and things like that. He's had actually real competition, to actually prove himself, and he always answers, Sterling. That's what I like about Sterling. And it sounds a bit silly, but an angry Sterling is a good Sterling. That's kind of what you need. You need a guy who's got something to prove. I thought he was excellent on Saturday, as I'm sure everybody did, and brilliant moving forward onto the next game.
I mean, Tim, when we're looking forward to future games, when we're getting more players coming back to fitness. Carney Chukwuemeka made the bench against Burnley. Obviously, not quite fully fit just yet. Amanda Brozier coming back to full fitness. He started the game, was taken off at half time. We're now approaching the point where Pochettino is going to have to make a decision about who he's going to go with going forward. And if he's intent on playing the 4-2-3-1, and it's looking like Conor Gallagher is all of a sudden playing out of his skin. He's playing absolutely incredible, kind of being a bit Mount-esque, if that makes sense, like in terms of being like not necessarily getting the stats that you'd expect, but working hard for the team. Is Pochettino going to have I mean, if it was you and you're in Pochettino's shoes, if you have a fully fit Chelsea squad and you've got Raheem Sterling playing well, you've got Mudryk playing well, you've got Nkunku coming back into the fold, you've got Cole Palmer being a player he's doing absolutely fantastically. What could you see Pochettino going with? Do we need to have that experience with Sterling starting all the time and maybe having Mudryk run at tired legs in the second half?
From what I've seen, I think he does value Sterling's experience. I think he started pretty much every game he could, apart from the game he had cold. So I think it will be a thing where we will see Sterling playing pretty much every game he's available. But if I was Pochettino with Nkunku coming in, does Cole Palmer drop out then? But Sterling go to the right, or how does he play? Because he seems to favour this three in midfield, and it's something I wanted to touch upon actually. That the fact that we did have three in midfield, but we were getting cut open. There was so much space in that middle. It kind of looked like, I don't know if you guys remember when we used to have a 4-3-3 under Lampard, where it was Mount and Havertz and then Kante as a lone six, and it just so much space in that midfield. Whereas against Fulham, we actually looked like we controlled that midfield quite well, where the gaps were closed. I'm not sure if it was just a thing of Burnley knew how to saw what we did against Fulham and, set sort of traps and how to break through the lines pretty much. But it's a thing I think we need to work on, especially against Arsenal. You don't want that midfield to be overrun, but obviously we'll discuss that later. And I think it really is a selection headache, because I do think this squad is quite over bloated in the sense of, like, you've got so many options to pick and you just need them to play well, and they do, because like I say, they are young players at the end of the day. They need consistency, and what I don't want is the fact that if we play bad now, we start recruiting in January and add more mess like we already did last season, because that's the last thing I really don't want. I think we need to stick with what we've got, maybe even loan out a midfielder, because I think we're overloaded in that position at the moment.
If you're thinking about loaning out a midfielder, who do you think would be the one that's likely to be sent across on loan?
That's the difficult question. Do you even possibly look at Lavia, or do you look at Mudryk as loaning out? Because at the end of the day, you've got Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, Mudryk, Lavia,
Carney.
I guess Palmer might drop into that sort of mix of like playing on the bench. Oh, Chukwemeka, that's six already there.
You could. I mean, the thing is, the problem that we've got is the squad it's kind of a bit everywhere. That's the problem. You've got sort of players who are quite good in one system and not another. I mean, even like Chilwell at the moment is a bit lost in that squad, if you know what I mean. It's not just because he's injured, but even if he was fit, it's a bit where do you put him at the moment, And this is kind of where the problem lies at the moment. Is we're kind of in this, we've got a squad that kind of doesn't quite. Well, it's not like we haven't got a 1-for-1, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the formation doesn't suit every player. I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's sort of like, Sterling isn't quite the same as, another player. Or he's not quite the same as Mudryk, for example. And, so, but is that a good thing? Maybe. I don't know. Is it a good thing?
I think it is a good thing in the sense of, like, you can always change things up. But the problem is that the formation sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, a Sterling or Mudryk. A Sterling is an inside forward, let me say. Mudryk and Madueke are touchline wingers. Playing when you change from them to someone like Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer is someone who loves to drive on the inside, wants a bit more touches to the ball, and sort of play on the inside next to the striker. Whereas Madueke will pull you out wide, 1v1 sort of player. So it's about complementing each other with the type of players I suppose we have, and the thing is, we've just not had a fit squad, so we've had to sort of tinker around. You see Cucurella is playing right back and Colwell's playing left back. I don't know if that's going to be our left back like permanently, but even Ian Maitson himself is playing as an attacking midfielder. You've got Gallagher sometimes playing at the 10, Enzo playing at the 10. And it's something I wanted to ask you, Charlie. You mentioned about Jordan Henderson coming to Chelsea. Don't you think Conor Gallagher's almost taken that mount in a sense?
Yeah, sort of, but he's not quite. He's still too young. But Gallagher, to be fair with Gallagher, I think a lot of people last season wanted him. Were probably fairly happy to see him out the door almost. I think he wasn't quite up to the level that we required. But I think this season he has been played in his sort of more natural position, and people have appreciated the fact that he is an example to the players around him in that 5 forward players. Look, my opinion with the problem that we have is that we have 2 players in the middle that cost over £100 million that we essentially, if they're fit, we have to play regardless.
Yeah,
just has to happen. There's no way we're going to go a season with Caicedo or Enzo on the bench. It's not going to happen, right? So those 2 have to play every single game, and obviously that leaves the formation that Pochettino's left with has to work around that. So whichever way you look at it, he's doing probably what I think most of us would do if we were playing Championship Manager and you were given that particular formation, if you like, but you have to play those 2. That's the only way that you can play around it, to have an attacking formation. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, I want to move on Turfmoorhouse with Cole Palmer as well. To me, is Cole Palmer scores his first goal for Chelsea from the penalty spot. I fully expected Raheem Sterling to step up and take that penalty. But is he the signing of the summer so far? Because he's come into the team, he's played 3 games on the bounce now. He's made some substitute appearances, 3 starts, and in all these games he's played very, very well. Is he the signing of the summer so far, Charlie? Do you think he's the one that Chelsea need to kind of build their team around?
So far, yes, but all I'll say is don't get too excited, because a lot of players started well at Chelsea and didn't develop into anything else. So this is all I'm going to say, is don't get too excited. But yes, so far he's really has been the difference. But then again, Mudryk started his career at Chelsea quite well, and then
that
he
is
dipped,
a difference.
and now he's going again.
Mudryk played 45 minutes well against a tired James Milner. There's a difference between that and then coming into a team and looking so composed on the ball, looking like a breath of fresh air. Usually players come in, they take a while to adjust to the system, but he's kind of gone in and started flying. And he's playing exceptionally well.
I'm not doing him down at all. I'm just saying that don't get carried away. I'm just saying that he's very well, which is good. And obviously, I hope he retains his place in the team. I think at the moment, him and Sterling probably over Mudryk at the moment. If if we were to play tomorrow, for example, but obviously it's great. We've got competition for places all of a sudden. We should be happy really that we've got competition for places for once. but it's at the moment, yes, him and Sterling at the moment, yes, on form.
Yeah. I mean, Tim, but 4-1 win. There's very little that we can really complain about, but it's looking like the purple patch at right back for Marc Cucurella has come to an end. He didn't have the best of games, taking on the 18-year-old Burnley left winger. He didn't close down quick enough for that opening goal. Are we seeing Reece James is technically available against Arsenal? He's supposed to be fit in time for Arsenal. Does he walk into the side? Is Reece James going to go straight into the starting lineup, or are we going to see Marc Cucurella trying to keep Gabriel Martinelli quiet?
Is Gusto back that game as well? I think he is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, because they counted the Brighton. They counted the Brighton one for some reason, but they didn't count the Jackson.
League
but
Cup.
They did. The League Cup counts for. It does for but not for 5 yellows. Apparently, I've heard this. Don't know why.
So does this mean potentially? So would you say? Well, let's just ask that question. With Arsenal, it is in 2 weeks' time. There's an international break coming up. Reece James will be available. He is Chelsea captain. He does make a difference when he plays. Could we see, if it is you, do you stick safe and go Malo Gusto coming into the side, or would you a more defensive style player over Reece James?
I think the fact that you're at home, you need your most attacking threat, and that's Reece James. I would be disappointed if Reece James didn't start. If he's fit and available, he should start. He's probably our best player in the whole squad, I think. So that alone says that he should play. However, is he match fit for 60, 90 minutes against a high-pressing Arsenal team? Probably not. And that's going to be an issue, I suppose. So what does he do? Does he go with Malo Gusto, who's shown good form this season, or does he trust Cucurella, who's just kind of played the last two games and he's running off sort of adrenaline or a bit of confidence? Albeit he didn't do very well against Burnley, but he's just got a bit of that sharpness, I suppose, that Reece James will need maybe a couple of games to get back to his very, very best if he doesn't get injured again, of course. But I don't know. I think the safe bet is to start Gusto. I don't know what you guys think.
I think he'll go with Gusto, and the reason that I think he'll go with Gusto is simply because of the system again, because the system suits Gusto. The system that we're playing at the moment doesn't suit Reece James. Reece James has always been better as a sort of wing back bombing on and things like this. The system we're playing at the moment doesn't allow that, and I just think that it's he's played in that system, and it just makes sense. And I'd be more confident, I'll be honest with you, if you had a brand new Reece James who hasn't played since. When was the last time Reece James played?
First game of the season, I think.
Right. So I'd be more confident with good. But he's not been injured. He's just had a red card. He's still training. There's nothing wrong with him. So I'd be more confident with him. He didn't play. I mean, up until that point when he got the red card, he was doing fairly well, I thought. I'd just be more confident with him.
He was playing very well, but also you mentioned how Reece James suits a different system, but the system has changed. Like Reece James, towards the back end of last season, albeit I don't think he was fully fit. He wasn't the marauding right wing back player that we've seen previously. I think we were talking about a lot of the time how we're quite frustrated with him not being that player that's bombing forward. Will this see a change to Pochettino's system with a fully fit Reece James coming in at right back and changing the way, are we going to see a Colwill move into the centre? DeSacy's injured as well now. So, we don't know the extent. He's pulled out the France squad. So we don't know if he's going to be ready for Arsenal. We're hoping, hope so. DeSacy's playing particularly well, but could we see maybe Thiago Silva and Levi Colwill coming into the middle with an actual left back playing left back with Mark Cucurella or Ian Maatson?
Yeah, it's a tough one because
tricky.
Honestly, I don't think it's a straight answer. I think it's just at the end of the day, it's what Pochettino decides on the day. I don't think you can really predict anything he's going to do. But if it were me, I would definitely have gone with Gusto, I think, and bring Reece James on because, like I say, the match fitness is going to be a huge issue for me. I think, especially against someone like a Martinelli, I think you need someone a bit sharp and ready to go stride for every time. And with Reece James bombing up and down that pitch is probably not the best thing for him. I don't know long term, does he change to a centre back or something, maybe to conserve his legs or fitness? I'm not quite sure, but I'm not quite confident on him remaining fit as a right back if it means him going up and down that pitch. And especially, can I just add, it's just because we do tend to attack on our right-hand side a lot more. So, again, that need of going up and down is probably a bit more needed than the left-hand side because, as you see with Colwill, he doesn't really support our winger. He's more just lays off a early pass, or usually stays in his position, whereas Gusto and Sterling on the other side, or James and Sterling, or whoever's playing on the right, is going to need... And even more so if Palmer plays, because Palmer's a player who likes to come inside. He's not a player who's going to take you 1v1 down the touchline. So you're going to need an overlapping fullback. If we're going to get any joy from Arsenal, we'll need to take their fullbacks on or create more space for our attackers.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting thing, this Arsenal game that we got in 12 days' times. But, speaking of wing backs, Ben Chilwell injured again and out for up to 2 months. It's looking like he's torn his hamstring, or he's done some sort of strain to his hamstring again. I think I had a look. This is his 6th or 7th injury now in, how long has he been with the club now? 3 seasons? 3 seasons?
I think,
2021, so 3 seasons.
Lampard.
And they're all pretty similar injuries. He's the Chelsea vice captain. Like when Ben Chilwell's on form, he's fantastic. He is undoubtedly. But obviously, injuries is an issue. Ben Chilwell is our best left back. You know, our best right back is Reece James, but they've got very checkered history with injuries. And Ben Chilwell, the older of the two, and less kind of, I guess, Chelsea because he didn't come through Cobham. But in light of this, could an argument potentially be made that Ben Chilwell probably isn't going to be the one that Chelsea are going to stick with long term? He doesn't particularly fit the mould in terms of going young. Could we potentially look elsewhere for a left back once we do clear out that department? If Maitson is due to leave and Kukurea, we don't see a future with Kukurea like long term. You know, is Ben Chilwell going to? Do you think he's the man for Chelsea in that position, Timber, or do you think Chelsea needs to start seriously considering elsewhere?
Yeah, I think it's high time Chelsea do start considering elsewhere. They've got 3 left backs at the moment, and the centre backs at the moment playing left back. So it's a story in itself, really, of what you're going to do with all of those left backs, or supposed left backs anyway. Again, I think Charlie mentioned it earlier. We've got just players stacked up in certain positions, but other positions looking like you look at striker. I don't think any of us really have much confidence in our strikers. But then we've got like near enough 4 left back, 3 actual left backs and a centre back playing left back at the moment. So it shows you the kind of the disbalance of the team. We've got 6 central midfielders and like sort of two attacking midfielders, things like that. It's just a bit crazy, I suppose. So in short term, you can't have your best 2 players injured. I mean, imagine season's gone if we had Hazard and Fabregas injured for 3 or 4 months. How much would that have derailed our season? Or Drogba and Lampard out for 4 or 5 months? It's just ridiculous. You need your best players to be fit and available all the time. So I think building a new nucleus of important players is going to be very crucial. We see it now. We've bought, the players like Caicedo, Enzo. We're trying to build a nucleus around them. But I think in more attacking positions, you definitely need to build more of a attacking threat, I suppose. And it's something I wanted to touch upon, Enzo. People saying that he's not been justified for the 105 million. And I kind of have to agree in a sense, just because if the team isn't scoring goals, what does he offer?
I mean, if he's still creating
the goal.
Yeah. He's still creating the chances. The problem is that the number 9, whoever's playing at the top, whether it's Jackson, if it's Armando Broja, isn't scoring them. So I think it's very difficult to justify his price tag just yet on the basis of the fact that we don't have an out-and-out number 9, which we've long discussed on this podcast that there should be an out-and-out number 9, whether it is Ivan Toney, whether it is Victor Osimhen that comes in, or we go for somebody else like Will High from Lens. I think that was another player that we were linked to. He's another young player, 19 years old, a French player. But he doesn't kind of fit that mould of what Chelsea needs. It would be an out-and-out striker. So I think until he gets another number 9, for me personally, I'd say the jury's out, because you do see flashes of brilliance with him. He can create chances. He does switch the ball a little bit different. He's compared to when previous players like Jorginho. He's a bit more dynamic, but the problem is that price tag. If we're talking about Enzo Fernandez now and he came into us for 40-50 million, I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
And this is the problem that I was saying to you earlier, is that Pochettino is basically, he's damned that he has to play the whole squad around those 2 players, Enzo and Caicedo, because of the price tag. And even Mudryk, to an extent, Mudryk has to get a game. He has to get a chance. He's constantly being, he has to come on as a sub at least every match, and he has to start a lot of matches. And it's price tag pressure, isn't it, on a lot of these players? And even, I mean, how much do we pay for Lavia?
50 million.
Right. So he's not going out on loan. No way. It'd be a bit of a joke, wouldn't it?
It's gonna be Ugo Chukwu that goes on loan. I think it will be.
And despite the fact that he's come in and, from what I've seen, played quite well. And Carney's played quite well. But the fact is, 50 million quid, we will give him a lot more of a run of games, and we have to. than these other players. Sterling, again, why does Sterling play every match? Because it's 50 million quid. Because it's Sterling as well. And because we're paying him a good salary. We're paying him a decent salary. He's probably on the top. He's probably the most highly paid player that we have at the moment, right?
On the 300k a week.
Right. So he has to play every week. So there's this kind of game going on as well at the same time. And you have to feel for Poch because, again, Silva has to play every game. Sanchez obviously has to play every game. So really, when you look at the lineup, there's not really a lot of room for manoeuvre in terms of what he can actually do without pissing people off, basically. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's a thing I will have to say. That's just squad politics. I think when you're at a big club, you expect those things to be. And the problem with Chelsea, it's very short tenures. So you come in automatically having to juggle a lot of things at once, and it doesn't make it any easier for managers to make those big decisions because, like you say, you maybe get on the wrong side of one player and the whole dressing room falls apart. We saw the previous clicks of whatever Lukaku, Ziyech, Aubameyang, and all those type of players where they've all just been phased out the club now. Where if it gets volatile for one, it can get volatile for quite a few players. Where they're like, oh, why are you not starting him for? Or the agent starts speaking or the player starts speaking. We see it with Ten Hag now, and all that pressure at Man United. So I think it's just politics. And at the end of the day, I hope he does get what he wants because it looks like he's going to be involved more with transfers coming January. So hopefully for his sake, he does last then. And this tenure does actually work out because the next thing you don't want is a new manager coming in and rejuggling the squad yet again. When we've got players like Andre Santos out on loan yet to even come back and he hasn't even played a game. And this is another, like I say, we've signed too many players at once without a real proper plan, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely room for manoeuvre when it comes to players going out on loan. Like Leslie Kuchukwu is probably going to go out on loan in January. I would fully expect him to do so, maybe potentially join Strasbourg. And then, we've still got David Washington as well, that young 17-year-old player that he's got. And he's technically in the Premier League squad. He's in our first team. He's been on the bench a few times. He's another striker. We're just we've got too many players in this kind of position. It's weird. We're in the same position as we were last season, only with players that actually want to play for Chelsea. It's just bizarre. Do you know what I mean? So I think we're probably going to see, some people leaving in the window, but it's that number 9 position. We just need the number 9. And I think as well, as much as it pains me to say, we've got to start planning for life after Thiago Silva. We do, and it's when do we start doing that? Do we wait for these run of games when we've got tough opposition and then against teams that are considered weaker, lower half of the tables teams? I use that in inverted quotes because we are technically, as of last season, in that age. We need to plan for life after Silva.
Yeah, but again, it's the same problem, isn't it? In a way, because we have to play Silva, don't we? At least for the big matches, Silva has to play. So do we have to plan, or is it a problem that we're creating ourselves, or do we just have to phase it out ourselves? The thing is, I think the last 3 games, and we've said this in the last few podcasts, Silva has to play because we need the points, we need the money. We have to play the best guys. But if we're in a position where we started the season quite well, I don't know whether Silva would have necessarily played against Burnley. He might have been rested for that game. Who knows? I think that's the thing. I think he's been kind of forced to play those many matches because we haven't picked up the points, basically.
I mean, Tim, we've had left backs. Cole's playing there at left back. Do you think Chelsea should start planning for life without Silva sooner rather than later?
Oh, 100%, 200%. In fact, I don't like him starting every game. I think it's more of a detriment to ourselves, if anything. It's not anything against Thiago Silva. He's a brilliant player, and I think from reports he's planning already his life after football. He's looking to go into coaching. I think he'll probably stay in England after he retires, or I don't know if he's going to drop down the league or whatever. But
I'd love him to stay at Chelsea.
Yeah,
I'd love to stay at Chelsea in a coaching capacity.
Oh,
that
definitely.
knowledge.
Definitely, and you can see even in his Instagram's post, he's starting to post now in English. So I think maybe the English language or barrier is he's starting to actually embrace it a little bit. To because his sons are in the academy at the end of the day. So there's probably a plan there to stay here for a few years. His wife mentioned it a couple of times. So it's just a shame that we it's kind of like sort of kicking an old man when he's down, but you kind of have to do it. You kind of have to just shoot him at the back of the head, take no remorse for it.
We've done it before, haven't we? Look at the title winning season in John Terry's last season. He wasn't starting every game. We were going with like David Luiz, Gary Cahill, like we're playing over him. We have to start looking at things like that. And I'm a massive fan of Thiago Silva. I was thrilled when we signed him on a 3, and the fact that he's played phenomenally for the past 3 seasons and 2 months. It's just a shame that we didn't get Thiago Silva of like 28, 29, 30, because he could have been absolutely phenomenal. Imagine Thiago Silva playing alongside John Terry. We would have been insane. It would have been wonderful. But yeah, no, it's a tricky situation, but we'll see what happens with Arsenal. We'll preview the Arsenal game next week. We want to try and keep these to an hour where possible. But chaps, I greatly appreciate you both for joining us on the We Talk Chelsea podcast. We are on YouTube at We Talk Chelsea and live on TKS TV. We thank Turfmoorhouse TV for joining us as well. We're back next week at 9:30. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll be back and speak to you all very soon. Take care. Up the Chelsea.
Out the Chelsea.